Hey y'all, what's up? It is Roy here, and this is the first of many Texas State football reviews. This is coming at halftime. Now, unfortunately, as I'm recording this, I just witnessed the third quarter meltdown that just happened. I mean, we just gave up 24 points in like 4 minutes, something like that. Insane. Turnovers. But luckily, this is a first half review, not a first 3 quarters review. So, hang on. I've got too much maroon showing. Let me cover that up. Anyways, let's talk. I'm going to start this review by giving a grade based off what I saw in the first half. Defensively, the one thing I noticed in my notes as I watched the game was defensive line looks great. Defensive line's disruptive. They're getting in there. Defensive line. Our D-line, I'm giving an A+ for the first half of this football game. Absolutely disruptive, getting in the backfield, play after play. They were present. They were felt. D-line looked great. Our defensive backs had a bad habit, it looked like, of watching the play of the line. They were focused in on what was happening there rather than their receivers, which allowed the receivers to get behind them and play behind them. So we were having to catch up with the receivers when the ball did come over our head. So overall, I'm going to give the defensive backs a C-. Let's pay a little more attention to the receivers and a little bit less attention to the D-line. Linebackers. With the exception of Harris, 27's a beast, y'all. I mean, he was all over the place. He was making plays. He was disrupting plays. With the exception of him, I'm giving the linebackers a solid D-. I watched the linebackers play after play get owned. When the line would penetrate, the linebackers were getting blown up and pushed 5 yards off their spot. On the goal line play, the linebackers are shifting across. They moved well with the snap of the ball. They were there, but every one of them condensed into one hole, and the guy just walked right around them around the outside, where if one would have just trailed just 2 steps behind, potentially could have made that play at the line before they ever got in. So linebacker play needs to improve drastically. But overall, the defense looked very, very good in the first half. The receivers, from what I'm seeing from our receivers, they have fight, they have drive, they're catching the ball, and they're trying to continue to move forward. They are trying to get more yardage. I like seeing that from the receivers. That's a great thing. Maybe we can watch the ball a little bit more, watch it into the hands a little bit more. We had a couple of easy drops we shouldn't have dropped. If the gloves are a problem, take the gloves off, guys. Just a suggestion. But overall, the receivers are fighting. The receivers are getting the ball, and they're looking downfield. Hatcher. I've been iffy on the guy the whole time. I still hope for the best. I know we're going to stick with him for a while. We will see if that ends up being a good or bad thing. As of right now, and perhaps it's not all his fault, but as of right now, Hatcher has happy feet. He looks very nervous in the pocket. He's even before the ball's ever snapped, there's a lot of just early steps in the backfield. He's moving a lot. It seems like he has to be very set in place to get the snap. And he just doesn't seem comfortable back there. He has a very, very quick release. He's got almost a 3/4 sidearm type throw, which is allowing him to get that ball off really fast. The downside to having such a quick release is he has a tendency to lock in on a receiver. The interception that he threw in the first half was 100% because he locked on that receiver from the line, never took his eye off the receiver. Everybody in that stadium knew where the ball was going before he ever threw it. So did the defense, and it got picked off. So the quick release is great, but he has to work his progressions. He has to, at times, get off of the first receiver, get off of his primary, and at least glance at a different receiver here and there just to keep the defensive guessing a little bit, the defensive unit guessing. Now, again, when I mentioned that maybe that's not all his fault, I say that because the offensive line to this point looks horrendous. We had the same problem last year. I'm seeing the same problem again. Guys are just getting outmatched on the line. They're slow off the ball compared to at least Nevada's defensive line. They're getting pushed up. They're getting pushed back. The plays are getting blown up. Our running backs have nowhere to go when they do get the ball. The offensive line just has to improve, and perhaps that allows Hatcher to work his progressions a little bit more and give him more time. But even there early in the third quarter, I think it was early in the third quarter, we had a play where Hatcher had probably 8 seconds to throw the ball. And even on that play, we had another holding penalty. It was that player's second or third holding penalty already of the game. That seems to be an issue. We have one offensive lineman in particular, and I didn't get the number, so that's good. Maybe we can give him a little more time. The only thing I noticed is he was the only offensive lineman that on the sideline getting water that had his helmet off. And he wasn't being worked on. Another guy had his helmet off, but they were looking at something on his face. He had his helmet off, and he seemed a little more winded than everybody else. And then he's the same guy that's had issues on the field. So maybe it's a conditioning thing. Maybe there's an issue there. It's the only thing I really saw with, one person in particular. But overall, the O-line just looked terrible. That's going to have to improve. They're going to have to pick that up really quickly if Texas State wants to be productive at all. Running back, I would love to see a little bit more Jeter at running back. Hill is there, and Hill's always a good touch. He just seems to stop as soon as he's hit. And again, I'm not the running back. I'm not the one in there taking the punishment. I'm not the one trying to pick out holes in this line. But it seems like from at least today, Nevada, they're wrapping, and as soon as he gets wrapped, he's going. I don't see the leg drive continuing. Whereas with Jeter, I saw him picking out a hole, plunging through that hole, really putting some power, putting his legs underneath him and going through a hole, and just being a little more aggressive coming through those holes. And when he was getting hit, the legs were still moving, and that produced some yards after contact that I didn't see with Hill. So maybe let's see a little bit more Jeter. Let's balance him out a little bit more. Hill was definitely seemed to be the primary in the first half. Maybe we see a little bit more mixture there at running back. Overall, everything else, I enjoyed what I saw. I think there is definitely potential there over what I've seen in the last couple of years. I do see that, and I like that. I'm encouraged by that. Our wide receivers, like I mentioned, had a lot of good drive. They were really pushing forward. In particular, Hawkins has a very, very fast stop and go. He can make plays in the open field. He can make guys miss. He has a very fast stop, and then that acceleration was crazy to see a couple of times. When he gets the ball, he was receiving contact on the touchdown. He's watched the ball through the contact, made the catch, and was in the end zone in seconds. I know it was only a couple of yards, but just has such a fast acceleration. Hawkins is going to be big for us. We have to continue to get the ball to him, especially as he's coming across that middle. If we can kind of have him come off that middle there, get him the ball on the hashes, let him make some plays in the open field, I think we're going to end up seeing Hawkins be a big, big asset to the receiver core this year. Other than that, just some clock management stuff. We've seen a couple of delay of games that weren't necessary. We rushed it there at the end of the first half when we should have just taken a timeout. We had all three. No reason not to take one. You could tell they were rushed, and sure enough, the very next play, he's rushed, he overthrows the receiver, and we turn the ball and give them the ball back with 42 seconds left in the first half. When, if nothing else, we at least could have run the clock out. We could have got one more quality play rather than rushing that play. So I didn't quite understand why we didn't just slow it down for a second. But we didn't, so we'll see. It's our first game. Let's get those nerves out. Overall, first half, I was okay with. I'm happy with. Let's keep pushing. Third quarter, I'm not going to talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Eat 'em up, cats. See y'all later.